study. And that's why I think it's very important. What are the questions you want to answer in your study when you do the pilot? And I want to reiterate that, no? Because without that proper guidance, you don't know what data you're going to collect and what means we are going to gather the data and how do you interpret the data. Those are basic things that has to be ironed out. And he has raised so many questions already and many considerations given in this discussion. So I don't know what is your framework now of making that kind of study.
There, you raise a good point. In our experience dealing with DepEd in general, I'm not pointing to a specific administration. Like for example, the discussion on mother tongue. There was also a pilot test, during that time. I think this was 2012, 2013. But we also requested for the output of that pilot. Because you do a pilot because you want to test the implementation, you study the pros and cons, and you address the downside. But unfortunately, documentation was not as was very poor at that time, so they couldn't show us the output of that pilot. So we're also we're urging DepEd that pilot testing should serve as a research output or a research activity,
Definitely.
and we learn from that. No, I agree that we need to implement pilot approaches, because of DepEd's massive number of students. Implementing it all at once is going to be very difficult. So a pilot approach is it's a rational approach, but we need to learn. You need to learn. Father, your microphone.
My contention is before you do the pilot, you have exactly the questions that has to be answered. And therefore, we need the framework by which all those questions will be anchored. So I think that's very important process. You just don't do a pilot of nowhere or just your own thinking, but rather it should be guided by a particular framework that you are operating on. And therefore, even before you do the pilot, there is that consideration. No? What is the question I wish to answer in this pilot? Okay. And what is the framework that I'm going to use in order to do the pilot? I think it's a very important process.
We'll have further discussions on that, Father. But I'm sure DepEd is listening, so we'll request for their feedback during the next hearing. So we'll go on to before. I have questions and items to discuss with EDCOM, but I'll go to another expert who have studied the senior high school curriculum extensively, and this is ACTRC, headed by Dr. Frido. So we call on Dr. Frido for her comments and feedback.
Good afternoon. I don't have any prepared slides, but the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center completed the review of the K-10 curriculum way back in 2021. And then a few months ago, also completed the senior high school curriculum review. So in all the discussions raised today, I just like to point out that in our interviews with parents, students, teachers, principals, employers, really there is a need for not just the design, because we're talking now about the design of the curriculum, which is the intended curriculum. But our findings also show that the implemented curriculum has to be considered largely. Even in the K-10 curriculum, there was a need for students to keep the pace of the entire curriculum in their grade level, because there were just too many topics. But with the revisions, there is already a reduction. Also, another important factor, and that was raised by Doc Carol, is the qualification of teachers. It's very alarming. I am in science. I sat with BCD as a resource person together with the Australian consultants, trying to strengthen, refine the core curriculum and even the electives. I must say that it is a very big improvement compared to what we have written or developed in K to 12. Of course, a curriculum is very dynamic. It has to address issues that arise. But in the core general science curriculum guide, I just signed it off yesterday. Even the electives for Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2, as written, they're good. And if students are good, they will be able to, as you have asked, they're ready for the STEM in the GE course of the college curriculum. But we think in the research center that a bigger factor is the implementation, the teachers themselves. What about our teacher education institutions? How are they being prepared? Because if these are the percentages in the report of Doc Carol, we have a long way to go. And when we were interviewing parents, they did not categorically say that we don't like senior high school. Rather, they are challenged by the economic factors. Now, but in terms of your satisfaction, dissatisfaction, of course, there are other factors that affect that. And I think the bigger factor is the economic. So it's better to look at it in a broader perspective. Also, I think I have already mentioned this, Senator, before in other forums, that we're focusing too much on the senior high school, when in fact, we haven't moved the elementary education sector. We may have several elementary science high schools, but how about the teachers that are fed into that? So those are my comments. And because I have been involved in K to 12 since 2011, it is such a good news or a great news to hear that right now CHED and DepEd are collaborating very closely. That was the dream long time before. I heard it, but now it has come to fruition. So thank you.
Kawawa naman tayo. Dream natin, mag-usap lang kayong dalawa. Oo. Yun lang ang dream namin. But that's a big step already, Dr. Frida. I've interacted with you many times on K to 12, and I know your frustrations, no, in so far as how the agencies work among themselves, no.
I think that's just the way that we live in the educational system. I've not been frustrated to the fullest yet in my senior. I still have hope.
Thank you, Dr. Frida, for the work you do, especially for education in K to 12, and we take your research very seriously, and in fact, we use it in our policy making. Also in EDCOM, actually, we take that very seriously.